A reading from the Gospel of Mark. No one sews a patch of unshaken cloth on an old garment. Otherwise, the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours a new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskin will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. The Gospel of Christ.
So I'm wondering if the kids could come on up. I need some help up here this morning. Actually, we're going to help the adults this morning. So if any kids could come on up here and give me a hand as we help the adults do some learning this morning. That's great. Make yourselves comfortable on the nice soft floor up here. Okay, now, let's see. Great. No, I'm sorry, Stephen, you're too old. Stephen is actually anticipating the need for a microphone. That is great. Thank you, Stephen. It's live when you need it. It's live. Great. Okay. So, now, who can tell me the months of the year in the calendar, starting in the first month of the year? Who can, actually, you know what? Why don't we all say it together? Say it together. Who wants to start? Okay, go. Okay, keep going, everybody. Mm-hmm. March. Excellent. Okay, yes. I'm hoping the adults remembered what you said so they can leave here today remembering those months. So, now, did you know there's actually lots of different calendars in history? And so that calendar that you just gave us, well, the calendar we use in kind of normal life is only about 500 years old, which is kind of weird because history goes back longer than that, and time goes back longer than that. So there is also a church calendar. Did you know there's a Christian calendar? And so the Christian calendar is a bit different. So when does the calendar you just gave me, when is New Year's? When is New Year's?
The end of December.
The next day. So that's New Year's Eve, correct? Then New Year's Day is?
January the 1st.
January 1st, that's it. You got it. Okay. Do you know when New Year's Day is in the Christian calendar? It's today. So Happy New Year. So we don't actually call it New Year's, though. We call it, this is kind of funny, we call it Advent 1. So it has a little less pizzazz to it, but let me talk about that. So in the regular calendar you just gave me, how many months are there? 12, right. In the church calendar, we don't use months, we use seasons. And there's 7 seasons. Now, if today is New Year's Day, then this season is called Advent. And what season does Advent lead up to? Christmas. Bang on. Excellent. Now, I'm going to make a distinction. I'm going to talk about 2 different types of Christmas. One Christmas I'm going to call Shopping Christmas. And Shopping Christmas begins around kind of late November, when the stores start putting out their Christmas advertising, and we start hearing Christmas music in the stores. When does Shopping Christmas end?
Christmas.
Yes, Christmas Day, that's correct. When does Christian Christmas begin?
The 1st of December.
Good try. That's okay. So that is first Sunday of Advent is the beginning of Advent season, leading us to Christmas, preparing us for Christmas. Then when does Christmas season begin? Rachel, you were begins Christmas Day. So Christian Christmas season begins on Christmas Day. So, and we kind of forget that because the lead up to shopping Christmas is so big and exciting that we tend to forget that Christian Christmas actually begins Christmas Day. And so we have this season called Advent that is actually reminding us to prepare for Christian Christmas, for Jesus' birthday. So we have 4 weeks where we are preparing to welcome Jesus. And so I've got a little card for you here today. This is the Christian calendar. Can you pass these out amongst yourselves there? You can all take one home. And you can look at that with your parents. And you can look at that and see the seasons in the Christian calendar, in the church calendar. Now, for Advent, we are preparing ourselves for Jesus' birthday. And so we can do things at home for that. So, you see these candles up here that were lit this morning? Those purple candles and the pink one and the white one? Those are called Advent candles for the Advent season. And so there's one candle for each Sunday. So let me just point this out. There are 4 candles here, 3 purple, 1 pink, for the 4 Sundays of Advent. And this one, guess when we light this one? Christmas. Yeah, that's right, for Christmas Eve service, Christmas Day service, Christmas. Correct. So some families make Advent candles for home. There are other ways you can celebrate Advent at home with your family. So that's something you could talk with your family about. So you can take those calendars home with you. You can put it on your fridge. You can put it beside your bed and learn the other Christian seasons of the year. There you go. And we have more of those if anyone wants them. So thank you very much. And you can go and show those calendars to your family and teach your family the 7 seasons of the Christian year. So, okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to the adults now. Righto. So, I'm going to continue on the Advent theme, but I'm going to continue by using the parables theme that I've been using this fall. So, I am going to continue on the parables of Jesus this morning by using a pair of parables that fit nicely with Jesus' birth. And what we heard this morning in the gospel, oops, I forgot to show that. So that's what the kids received on the card version there. And so let's just play this through. Advent here to begin the year, Christmas, Epiphany, Lent, Easter, Pentecost, and what's called ordinary time. And some people like to say the top part, the first part of the year is the story of Jesus. The rest of the year is the story of the people of God. So that's what the kids have to take home today. So, we've just heard this morning the parables of the new wine and the new cloth. So how do these connect with Jesus' birth? Well, first I need to give some explanation. So, the first parable we heard, there is the parable of the new cloth. So Jesus says, everyone knows that you don't sew a new piece of cloth onto an old cloth, clothing, whatever, if you're trying to repair it. Okay, maybe back then everyone knew, but I'm not sure everyone today knows. So the rationale is this. So back in the day, everyone's clothes were either wool or linen or sometimes cotton, but all those materials shrink after their first few washes and dries out in the sun. And so you wear the clothing a while and it gets worn, and eventually everyone back then only had like a couple of pairs of clothing that they wore. And so they repaired their clothing. And so once a piece of clothing was getting old and needed some repairing, the material was, the fibers were getting weaker, and the material had shrunk. And so if you tried to repair a tear by putting on a new piece of material that had not been pre-shrunk, then what would happen in the first couple washes is that piece of material would start to shrink itself. And it would pull the fibers and the threads out and loosen up and not do its job if you sewed new material onto an old cloth. And everyone knew that back then. So everyone pre-shrunk their repair cloths, their patches. What about the wineskins? The wineskin parable. So in that parable, Jesus is saying you don't put new wine into old wineskins, as we all know, right? I didn't know. So why not? So there's portable wineskins, like you see here, basically a couple pieces of leather sewn together. But this is actually how they would often ferment and make the wine. Sometimes in like this, sometimes in urns, like ceramic urns. But when it was made this way, this is actually a goat carcass. And you take the goat carcass and you empty it all out, you cut everything out inside, and then you sew up the holes and the orifices and the seams and whatever, and you leave the neck, and you pour whatever you pour in there, and you let the wine ferment in that carcass. And you sew up, you tie up the neck, and you leave it there. So, why do you not put new wine into old wineskins? Well, the old wineskins, which are leather, it's all leather, right? Over time, they dry up and they start to crack. And the new wine refers to wine that is still fermenting. And when wine ferments, it expands. And so if you fill that carcass with still expanding, fermenting wine, and that's old leather that's not going to expand anymore and stretch, then eventually the seams and the sewing is just going to burst, and the wine is going to burst out of that, and it's going to be a real mess. And you'll lose a lot of money. So that's what Jesus is talking about there. Why you don't sew new cloth onto repairing an old cloth, and why you don't put new wine into old wineskins. So, what's Jesus' point? Why is he telling everyone this? Well, to get to his point, we actually need to go backwards a few verses to the context to see what the situation is prompting these two parables. So the situation is this. Some of John the Baptist's disciples, followers, have come to Jesus and said, hey, like you and your followers, Jesus, this is feast week. No, this is the opposite. This is fasting week. And you all aren't fasting. Like, what gives? Like, that's removed. Or that's, like, irreligious, or it's impious. I mean, that's not good. Why are you and your disciples not following the seasonal regulations? And don't forget, John the Baptist is Jesus' cousin. They're all good buddies and friends. But they're still trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here with Jesus? Why aren't they following the seasonal regulations and expectations? Being so antisocial. So here's how Jesus responds to that question. He says, the wedding guests don't fast at a wedding. They don't fast when the groom is with them. The wedding guests celebrate at a wedding. They have a big, long party. In that culture, weddings were several days. And so the clear implication here is, it seems at first kind of a weird response. Why are you not fasting? Well, because when the groom is with you, you celebrate. Okay, well, that's so indirect. But the implication is that Jesus is the groom. And somehow he is so important that the regular expectations need to be put aside, put on hold, in order to celebrate that he is with them. Wow, that's some kind of arrogant, unless it's true. And if it's true, then why is he so important that the ancient tradition has to be broken and replaced at this moment with celebration? Here is where the two parables come in to answer that question. Why is he so important? Because after saying his disciples aren't fasting because his presence is cause for celebration, he then gives these two parables to add kind of a dramatic note, even though the images are very ordinary. The two parables illustrate this. There are situations in which the new is not compatible with the old. Whether it's the new cloth on the old cloth or the new wine in the old wineskins, the new is not compatible with the old. And Jesus' arrival is one of these times when the new is not compatible with the old. Now is actually a time for celebration, celebrating his arrival. Jesus explodes the old categories. Something dramatically and radically new is here. And this new thing needs to be celebrated, not squashed by those who can't see beyond the old to the new thing that God is doing. Okay, so what is that new thing? The new what? On the first Sunday of Advent, today, we don't know yet. It will take the rest of the scriptures through the rest of the year to figure this out, to put the whole picture together. At this point, we're just being given a glimpse. Something new is here and happening. And it's not continuous, in at least some ways that we'll figure out, we'll see with the old. And so over the next 4 weeks leading up to Jesus' birth, we need to keep this in mind. That we are celebrating the birth of something radically, disturbingly, upendingly, wonderfully new in the world. A new way that God is at work in the world. So for those with eyes to see and minds that seek to understand, this disturbing, wonderful new thing will be something not to stubbornly resist, but rather to celebrate and join in with. And so in the weeks ahead of this Advent season, let's prepare ourselves for Jesus' arrival. Let's keep our ears and our eyes and our hearts and our minds open to see what this dramatic, revolutionary new thing is that God is up to. Not just for those 2,000 years ago, but for us today and our world today. I invite you to pray with me. Lord Jesus, this Advent season, prepare us to see and celebrate the radical new things you did back then. Amen. I invite you to please stand, and we will recommit ourselves to the commands that Jesus taught us. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God